or
All
don't
right.
worry about it. Just get into it.
Okay. Got it. So, yeah, so I hope everybody's been holding up and staying positive. Like Ben said, the factual side of this webinar today, the information, there's not tons of it. There is a lot of good things. And I think what we're going to find is as it starts to come out and people start to really engage with it, there's just going to be questions that pertain to your own unique situation. It's like, well, hey, I have this and I'm doing this. How does that apply now? And that's where things can get unclear. But I think if we start with the basics and kind of delve in, and Ben and I will talk to you throughout the webinar about several different things. Let's get started. I will say the first thing that I noticed, Ben, and this is the positive side of me, and I'll show the next slide. That the CARES Act actually stands for something, and it actually stands for something quite good in my opinion. We've all seen different acronyms for numerous things, associations, etc. But this is Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, CARES Act, and that's covers several different things. And then when we found out that the student loans was one of them, that's a big player. So what we want to focus on initially is just what exactly is this act saying and going to start doing, I guess Monday, or if not today. I can't remember exactly what they said. I think they said the 3rd, and you'll see here. So this applies to student loans, and it applies to federal student loans. So, but before we jump into this, one of the things that Ben and I and the other advisors at Waypoint, we really want you to focus on, are you going to be okay? And are you going to be okay now versus 10 years down the road? Ben, we talk to clients and other people that aren't clients, friends of the family, etc. And there's times when people just have a day or a week and they just are not feeling the greatest. They're anxious. They're just got all kinds of weird emotions. And we know firsthand that if you make the wrong or not the best decision when you're in that peak emotional state, that even if you feel alleviated initially, maybe your anxiety is alleviated somehow, it's short-lived, and really what we see is long-term wealth can get eroded. Now, that's usually what we start talking about when we're talking about our other town hall meetings where we're talking about the stock market and the investments. So this is a positive spin on that because we're not losing money per se. This is actually a way for us to get some relief right off the bat from student loans.
Yeah, if you need it. That's the key. If you need it, yeah. I mean, there are repercussions for getting some relief. I mean, there are going to be consequences of getting relief, in certain types of situations.
Absolutely.
So I mean, it really comes down to your unique situation, and if you've got a strategy that you're working and you can continue to work it, if you're one of the blessed, I mean, we're going to say continue to work it because relief is for people who really need it. Our goal, ultimate relief, is getting out of debt, is getting these things paid off and gone. Yeah. So yeah, Joe, and so this CARES Act, I mean, it offers a lot of different types of relief. And to go to the next slide, Joe.
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and get into these. Are the 4 main highlights, and then everything else kind of fits within these. And it really, and I didn't put on this slide as I address it later, but it's going to start from March 13th, which was retroactive, and it's going to go to September 30th of this year, so roughly 6 months. And what's going to happen is if you have a federal loan and automatically, you don't have to make sure you do it, your payments will automatically stop for the 6 months. In fact, we'll talk about later, if you're in a situation where you want to continue to pay, you have to actually reach out and get that done. But so for 6 months, there's going to be a forbearance of just don't have to pay. And then also during that 6 months, there's no interest. It's basically there's going to be a temporary 0% interest on all the federal loans during that six month period. So if you didn't make the payments after the end of 6 months, you're not any worse off because there's no interest accruing.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but it delays you. It delays your payoff. It delays you. So that's why it delays it by 6 months. So
Yes.
I mean, this will pick back up, and if your goal is to get out of debt by a certain time frame, which a lot of people have that,
Absolutely.
then you can continue to do it. By all means, we're gonna recommend you continue to do it. So go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no problem. The third one here is something that I don't see too often with our clients, but we do come across it, and is the idea of if you're in default on a student loan, a federal student loan, and you're at the point where debt collections have come and they're garnishing your wages or maybe even taking Social Security payments or waiting for you to file your taxes, that will be suspended as well. So no collection agency can touch the federal loans during this 6 month period. They just absolutely cannot. So you don't have to worry. So think about it that way, Ben. Maybe you kind of in default, so you haven't been paying towards the student loans, but now you also don't have to worry about, your tax return. You might get to get that money and help out. So that's kind of a win. I like that a lot.
The purpose of the CARES Act is to get money in people's hands to be able to spend it in this economy. That's the purpose of this. Everything from the payroll protection program to the student loan to the economic injury disaster EDL, that loan, or the $10,000 EDL grant that business owners are. It's designed. I spent a lot of time thinking about the purpose of why they're trying to do this, and I really feel like with this coronavirus and the recommendations that these governments have made for people to shut down your business, physically issued stay at home or shelter in place, orders where you can't, I think partly feel like responsible for this. So that's why I think they're giving us all this relief. So if you don't have any garnished wages, what's really important is you need to really pay attention to this, because debt collectors are not the most scrupulous people. I'm just gonna throw it out there. If you're in a situation where you're having somebody garnish your wages or something like that, or if any debt collectors come in trying to get stuff from you, that's all on hold. That's all on hold, and just make sure that you're if it's a federal loan, I guess it would be the federal government possibly garnishing your wages for it, but they're going to eliminate all that.
Yeah, or third party companies that they hire. I imagine in the debt collections world, there'll probably be some bad apples that still try to get your money, even though they're in order not to. But that's we'll deal with it there. And then the last one, we have quite a few people that we work with and have known over the years that are in certain programs where it's some type of loan forgiveness program, and maybe it's like a 10-year. After 10 years, you get your loan forgiveness. Well, this is unique. So if your goal was to hit 10 years and then you get your remaining loans forgiven, and all of a sudden now you have these 6 months where you don't have to pay, but does that mean you're going to have to wait 10 years and 6 months now? And what they're saying is absolutely not. So for those programs, the 6 month forbearance for credit towards the loan forgiveness, it acts as if you actually had been making the payments. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Perfect. Next slide, Joe.
All right.
There you go.
So just for a little bit, we kind of want to talk about, the emotional impact and the economic impact of all of this. And when I say all of this, and Ben, we talk about this all the time, it's not just the student loans. For those of you listening, you most likely have student loans, and that's why you're attending. But I imagine that you have a bunch of different other pieces of your personal financial world that are all affected. So we want to make sure we're looking at everything and staying positive about everything. When I put the emotional impact, I imagined somebody who has a very high monthly student loan payment. Okay, and a lot of pharmacy grads have that. And I could imagine that when they first hear the news of, oh my gosh, 6 months, I don't have to pay that, there's going to actually be some emotional alleviation, some happiness. Like, wow, and that's good. But at the same time, we want to make sure, okay, how is it actually going to affect you economically today? And then how is it going to affect the other areas of your financial life?
Yeah, and how's it going to affect you 10 years down the
10
road? I
years
mean,
down the road,
that's,
yeah.
again,
That's why
we have a saying, don't sacrifice what matters most for the moment, right? I mean, so, it's absolutely, this has got to be part of an overall strategy, financial
and we're looking
strategy. Yeah.
10 plus years,
Because again, people make decisions in the short term,
Mhm.
and there's this temporary relief, and we're talking about breathing room here.
Yes.
We're talking about breathing room. It's amazing to me how many pharmacists I talk to who are living essentially paycheck to paycheck. And listen, and it's okay. It's okay if you are, but this is going to give you some breathing room. But let's be responsible about it. Yeah, let's be responsible. Let's be responsible about it. Let's think it through. Think through how it's going to impact you and how you're going to use these resources that are going to be available to you, if they are moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Joe, let's get into the content of this.
Okay. So we found some really good information on the studentaid.gov website, and what they were doing is basically they had all this information, and then they kept having some people were asking questions like, oh, well, what did you say? Or did you mean this? And so they're keeping this kind of ongoing updating the answers to the questions and rephrasing, et cetera, as people find out more things. And so I sifted through all that pretty well, and it's pretty interesting. But what it comes down to is what we said before, is this program of having your student loans, for 6 months not having to pay, it's going to affect each and every one of you differently and uniquely. It's all about your situation, etc. So these were the 4 areas that most people were asking all the questions under. The first 2, just the basics. Hey, what does it mean 0% interest? I hear that, but what does it actually mean? What does forbearance mean? Does that mean this and that? And what about under the category of defaulted loans? How does that affect? Like one of the questions was, hey, if I have a defaulted loan, obviously I'm not making payments, so I'm not going to get anything. What benefit am I getting? Type deal. And then the 4th one was under the income-driven repayment plans. So the repayment plans that are tied to how much income you make. And of course, a lot of people are finding themselves either less hours, less income, or even out of a job. And of course, when that happens, they're saying, well, go back to the website that you originally set up the income-driven payment and essentially recalculate it. They're telling us to do that, so that, I mean, if you're making half your income now, granted, you're going to have the 6 months without having to make a payment, but what if it persists? What if after 6 months you're still earning a lot less? So you can recalculate your payments so you have even more breathing room and even more opportunity to do more. So next couple of slides, I just kind of took some of those questions from the sheet and put them on there. The print's a little small, but I think the idea is we just kind of want to hit some of the things that people are asking. And then, Ben and I will talk about different other scenarios. And then if either of you have any questions about a situation that pertains to you, or it could be hypothetical, have any questions there, I think this is kind of a working thing to go through. So, okay. So with the 0% interest, one of the biggest questions was, okay, what type of student loans does the 0% actually apply to? Okay, and that also would include the 6 months forbearance. All this program, what loans does it actually apply to? And it is the 3 that you see on the 3rd line there. So you got the direct loans, the FFEL program loans, and the federal Perkins loans. Okay, now if you see the line underneath, I know it might be a little small, but what it says is that you can actually have an FFEL loan, but it's owned by a commercial lender, so it's not owned by the federal government. If that's the case, then this is not going to apply to you. Same thing with the federal Perkins loans. There are federal Perkins loans out there that were actually issued by the institution. So maybe the college or the program that you went to. Same thing. Those will not apply. Okay. Now they do say there's a couple things you can do if that is the case, and one of them is that you can look into direct consolidation of the loans. But then they also say that you got to be careful, because if you do that, you might end up paying a higher interest rate than what you were. So that's a good example of like, hey, if I'm going to end up paying a higher interest rate, is the 6 months of breathing room on the loan payments worth it? Or, it's not that it's not worth it, but you have to really see how it's going to affect you long term. Ben, what are your thoughts on the 0%? I mean, I like it because I feel like they're taking the worry off of like, well, hey, if I don't make payments, I'm going to have even more interest later that I didn't sign up for.
Yeah, they want money in your hands to be able to ideally spend in the economy. Now, you don't have to do that. You can choose another strategy with it. Some people will boost their savings, boost their emergency funds, stuff like that. But they also don't want people stressed. I mean, we need our healthcare workers focused on taking care of patients. I mean, that's really, so they don't want you worried about all this stuff and, oh, my hours are cut, or I don't know, I've been furloughed. They don't want people worried about that. And because this is a much bigger fight that we're fighting here. And so I think this is a tremendous program that people can take advantage of. At what point in history have we ever seen this? There's never been no point in history where we've ever seen 0% loans, 6 month 6 month forbearance. Forbearance is deferring payments, guys. Forgiveness is just forgiving loans.
Yeah.
That's the difference. This isn't forgiven. This is forbearance, which is really clear. There's a clear distinction between those two things.
Yeah, good point, man.
It's unprecedented. It really is. For them to give you a 6 month, mulligan, basically. Hey, we can do things a little differently for 6 months. But again, they want people focused on taking care of patients.
Yeah,
they want people focused on trying to stimulate the economy, and whenever they open up these smaller businesses, open back up, get people back in there to the restaurants and things like that, whenever that is. So that's why they're doing this, and again, it's unprecedented. So
yeah, and I was just reading the second and third line there about the 0%. We were talking about that earlier, and so the second one is, hey, if I do go ahead and make loan payments during the 6 months, so basically they're automatically going to stop, but you can manually go in and manual pay. The question is if I do that, because it's 0%, how is my payment going to be applied? Because normally a payment's part interest, part principal. And just like you would think, what the answer is that 100% of any payment you send in during the 6 months goes 100% to principal. So
that's the part where your strategy specifically,
yes, absolutely,
is super important.
Yeah, because this could be a way for some people to get ahead a little bit on their debt pay downs.
Absolutely. Imagine if you're paying $3,000 a month for your student loans. 6 months, that's $18,000 of principal.
Yep.
You'll be able to wipe out with this because there's no interest accrued. Or no interest paid or accrued. Your payment will pick up as if you had a 6 month pause in October if you don't do anything. So again, this is an unbelievable opportunity to really positively impact your financial situation in your financial future.
Yeah. And I do want to go and point out that third item. A lot of people were asking about the private loans. Private loans have been very popular, and in many cases they're attractive, for many reasons, but this specifically does not apply to those. Now, what they did say, Department of Education website and the federal financial aid, is that the individual private companies or the other when the commercial lenders, they may end up doing something for you, but pertaining to the CARES Act, they don't have any authority to tell a private company what to do, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in that situation and you're hurting, I would still probably go ahead and reach out to your private loan company and, do something. It's just not going to happen.
I can't imagine a private loan company at this point not having a strategy.
Yeah.
I just to tell you, on our commercial loan for my company, for Waypoint, we called our business banker, and he said, we're automatically just giving you 90 days. We're no payments for 90 now. It's going to accrue interest, but no payments for 90 days, so you guys can catch your breath. You can catch your breath and build some breathing room here. Because again, everybody's impacted here. It's unbelievable. Our business is off probably 40%, this year, and that's crazy. It's 3 months in. We're already forecasting a 40%, reduction in revenue for our company. So it's really, it's an unprecedented time. So, and the worry, and again, we don't want you guys to worry. That's why we're bringing this to you. And that's why you really need to understand what that financial plan is and how this impacts it. Because when you make this decision, again, it's not how it affects you. It is how it affects you today. But as important is what's this going to mean 10 years down the road.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead, Joe. Go to the next slide.
All right.
Buddy.
So next one is just the questions about the forbearance, which kind of more straightforward. The first one is just getting clarification on the time frame. It's technically March 13th. So yes, it's saying that if you've already made a payment or a payment got through after March 13th and before things officially stop, you can get it refunded. It might take a while, but you will get that back. But it's March 13th through September 30th of this year.
And if you don't get it refunded, call your provider, because if you've already paid your interest, it should go all to principal. Okay, really important that if you made a payment and you paid up your interest, whatever's left should go, and it makes sense, go to principal. But they're technically not supposed to be charged. So if you made a payment on March 19th or March 25th, from the 12th through the 25th, or the 13th through the 25th, there should be no interest accrued. So,
well, and there was a little bit of when this act and the bill first started rolling out, it was not 100% clear, and so I think some people were making some decisions, and then it became very clear once it became an act. And, they're just saying if during that couple week time frame, if you made a payment and you would like it back, you have the ability to get it back. So the second two things on there are just talking about if I have the payments towards a public service loan forgiveness, and then that's the bottom one. The middle one is just that income-driven repayment plan. Basically, both of those are saying yes, even in this suspended forbearance, those 6 months are going to count towards your forgiveness credit or time, however it's set up. All right. The third one is defaulted loans. I know there's people that have defaulted loans. I know maybe they're behind, especially if you get out of school and you can't find work, et cetera. But when I first started reading about the defaulted loans section, I was kind of like, well, that's all right. But then the more I got into it, I realized that there's some pieces to this that could be very helpful to somebody in that particular situation. And the first one is what we highlighted earlier in an earlier slide, is that no wage garnishments, no Social Security payments can be taken, no you file your taxes and get a refund. They can't take that. So imagine that you're in default and you've got the collections agencies garnishing wages, and you're about to get this, decent tax refund, but you're like, why should I even file if I'm going to do that? But this is saying in this 6 month period, they can't do that, So think of that. That's extra breathing room there, Yeah, so there's just some more details here. And by the way, everybody's listening, one of the last slides, we have the actual websites where we found this information, and we can even send you the links in an email, or even the 6-page PDF that a lot of this came from. So
yeah, we will send that out. We'll send a bunch of follow-up. We'll follow up to everybody. Again, because we want you guys to have as much information. And as we get more information, we will keep you guys updated on this.
Actually, that's a good, I was going to bring this up in the forbearance. I forgot. Ben, we haven't talked about this yet, but, the September 30th date, I want to, my rational brain and my mathematical brain wants to know why that date, but then the question that's begging is that going to be extended? And of course nobody knows, but I wonder if this gets extended and we keep on the same plan, or if it changes and they do a modified version for the rest of the year.
What I can tell you is that from what I've heard, they're going to do whatever it takes.
Okay.
Whatever it takes. Now, I'm going to prepare for them doing what they said they're going to do.
Yes.
If I were taking advantage of this program, I'm going to prepare and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to plan for this through September 30th, and then I'm going to plan on restarting my loans on October 1. However, there is a chance. There's always a chance. I was watching the press conference yesterday, and they've allocated $350 billion for this payroll protection program. And Steve, I can't say his last name, Mnuchin or whatever, the Treasury Secretary, said, we're going to do whatever it takes. If 350 is not enough, we're going to go back to Congress and we're going to get more, because we're going to keep people employed through this, and we're going to try to keep the economy going.
Yeah.
Listen. We're in an election year, so so they're trying to stimulate. So it would not shock me if it got extended. It depends on how this virus spreads. So at this point, I'm open to anything, Joe. But again, I'm not going to be like, okay, I'm not going to put the work in. I'm not going to put the effort in to really make a plan, because I think it's going to get extended. And all of a sudden, September 15th comes and they say, oh, tough, we're not extending it. And you're like, oh, well, great. I missed 6 months of opportunity.
Because 10 years out from now is still 10 years out from now.
Exactly.
We need to have a plan long term regardless. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, we hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's kind of what we do.
Okay. The last one of a lot of the questions was income driven repayment plans, IDRs, which your monthly payments calculated based on your income and a couple other factors. And of course you see the black line there, and it makes total sense after you read it. It's like, so the first line is actually people that ask the question. So this one said, I'm currently on an income-driven repayment plan. I'm unemployed because of the coronavirus outbreak and don't know when my income will return to the same level. What can I do? Okay, the answer is you are automatically being placed in an administrative forbearance that allows you to stop making your payments through September 30th. And then it goes on to say, if your income has changed significantly, which, take a look outside, although you're not supposed to go outside, but, a lot of people that's happened to. And so what they're actually saying is, if it persists, or I don't know if there's a criteria before you can do it, but to actually go back on the website and click the button next to recalculate my monthly payment. Don't let it just keep going on. Go ahead and recalculate it based on a significant change in your income, even though it was due to something horrible. So
and I think what this is saying too is that, hey, as we move back into some kind of normal, whatever the new normal is going to be, because it's going to be new. There's going to be a new normal. This is my strategic coach and I were talking about this morning. This is a serious shift in society and how we're going to do things moving forward. And I really believe that if your income is affected and you don't get ramped back up to where you were, calculate your payments. And it says, as of September 30th, October 1st, go in, recalculate it. Your new monthly payments will resume, or your new monthly payments will resume at the new amount. Again, guys, this this is going to impact people. And if it does have it, and you're on one of these IDR plans, which have become pretty popular here recently and recent times, with just the amount of student loan debts and just the economic environment before, with the amount of pharmacists, on the market, it's been harder to find jobs, higher paying jobs, right? So yeah, just make sure you keep up with this, and make sure as your income comes back online or starts to ramp up back maybe to where it was, keep track of that, and make sure you're adjusting your payments accordingly until you get back to where you were, which is our hope for everybody, that we hope everybody gets back to where they were.
Well, and what's unique about this, getting a $1,200 check or whatever it ends up being in the mail one day, that's a different type of feeling and or responsibility, if maybe that's the right word, whereas like this is, your student loans are a big part of your total financial house, and all it affects every financial decision in your personal economy, affects everything else. So this is one of those things, it's not just the same as getting a check. This is a 6-month opportunity or breathing room to really affect other areas of your financial life. Maybe this breather allows you to keep putting money up to the match in the 401k, right? So everything's kind of interconnected, and that's why it makes it unique. And even though we're going through some rough times, it gives me a little hope of like, hey, hopefully people will take this as an opportunity to say, hey, I got 6 months, let's figure this out. Okay.
Yeah, we created a concept called the reset checklist, and it's about your life, about your lifestyle. But this is an opportunity to reset and reevaluate priorities in your life, stuff like that, because we've got way too much time on our hands these days. So we're just trying to think of things that we can do to do that, to help you guys. And so we created the reset checklist. But this is a great time to reevaluate your financial plan and take a look at it. You're getting some breathing room with some of these payments, and it really is a great time to. If you don't have a plan, it's a great time to create a plan. We don't want the people that we serve to be like the airplane pilot or radio control tower that says, "Yeah, I'm lost, but I'm making great time."
Absolutely.
We want people to have a direction and a clear strategy moving forward. And if we have that, then it becomes clear how we use this extra money. Do we pay off the debt? Do we put it in an emergency fund? Do we take a little bit and spend it? Hey, you know what? Maybe there's a lifestyle objective here. Maybe, my wife wants a new deck, Joe, so maybe there's a lifestyle objective here. And again, you don't know the answer, what's right, until you really truly understand what your plan is. And it's amazing to me how many people don't have a plan for their future. It's really unbelievable. We've been spending a lot of time in our organization talking about what's our purpose. Joe, you probably heard that until you're blue in the face at this point. What's your purpose? What's our purpose as a company, right? What's our individual purpose? What's our purpose statement? Well, the idea is, if we don't have a purpose and a vision and a strategy for moving forward, any decision you make is going to be right. Yeah. Just think about it,
Well, and 6 months later, you're going to not make any progress in that field.
Yeah. And I just don't believe that that's what we're here for. I believe we're here to have a strategy and a goal and a plan, and to execute that plan, a purpose-driven life. That's kind of where we are. So, Joe,
real quick. One of the slides, it didn't have any words. It was just a picture of it said recapture the funds. So, that's right in line with what we're talking about. I feel there's going to be a portion of the people that just need breather, and they need to badly buy groceries. And then there's going to be other people that have a little bit more flexibility, and they're going to look at this and say, hey, what should I do with that money? Well, we call that, so the student loan payments that are going to stop, you're essentially recapturing that outlay, that cash flow each month now. So one of the things we say is recapture those funds and have a plan for them. Now, if the plan is to go buy groceries, that's your plan. But if you think of it in terms of, hey, this is how much I was paying to the student loan, I'm now going to redirect it, recapture it, and send it over here or over here and over here. and I, that's a big deal, because that could be opportunity to build up even more breathing room for longer.
For the future, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, it's here are the resources.
Yeah, this is, and we'll send this to you. I mean, I like how the USA.gov, /coronavirus, the Department of Education has the same thing. So these are all big government agencies. They have, created special, and some of them are not financial. Some of them are just to keep update with how things are going.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah. So guys, those are the resources. Joe, next slide. Are we ready for questions?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all again. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody here. Joe, go ahead and stop recording.